Do you know
Consolidation of
what? Do you know what?
technology, as they
I
say.
spoke to somebody yesterday. In fact, this person is going to come on screen later on today. That individual told me the laptop that he or she, let's disguise the identity, that they had was 10 years old.
Oh God. That's great. I mean, that shows longevity, right? Like, I actually found because I was cleansing, it being Chinese New Year, I found my laptop from 2011 and it just won't turn on at all. And I'm just have to sell it for parts for like 10 quid at this point.
Yeah, or maybe you convert it into a little Claude sort of a station, and you get sort of an agent running for you 24/7.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm thinking of. You know, everyone's saying, "Hey, listen, you got to do this." And there's one thing, folks, that I really struggle with doing, which is basically coordinating all of the guests and panelists in Brainfood Live. It's like so hard to do simply because I'm doing it off my email. It's like I'm the worst like
It's
luddite when it
manual,
comes
isn't
to
it?
organize. Yeah, exactly. So I need a
Yeah.
bot
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, I think they call it like digital twin, right? So I remember correctly, like someone like Tata was working on this last year. They were saying, you kind of replicate yourself, like based on your information on Slack and email. So you can essentially be on holiday and it'll just be acting as you online, dealing with queries and recruitment and candidate communications, like that, which would be incredible.
There's going to be some crazy innovation. I'm already seeing it. I've kind of put together an elite group of frontier AI experimenters, I call them.
Mm,
And they're going to come on and they're going to show us some like crazy optimization things that they've been doing on recruitment workflow. That's a Brainfood
mm,
Live end of next month, by the way, end of March. Go just check it out. I think it's going to be the biggest show that we've had this year because some of the stuff they're talking about, I think, is just completely nuts. Like if you
yeah.
were able to set up an agency today, and you could spin that up, you could make a lot of money. There's a little moment of arbitrage where you can do that. Anyway, folks, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. And it's going to be a great show today. We've got some fantastic conversations going on. We've got some great guests, probably the most powerful guest list we've ever had. And it's going to be a really interesting conversation talking about a bit of research our friends at RL100 have done, surveying heads of talent and where they're seeing their resource distribution on their own teams. So, in other words, how do they currently see their team shape appearing going forward? It's going to be super interesting. Some really probably some interesting and uncomfortable conversations to be had, but we're here to have them. So it's going to be great to do that with you. Okay, we've got Christine on here. Christine, great to see you. By the way, you seem to be in a different location. Have you actually moved house already? Like, what's the
No, I'm
story?
still here for another week, but it's Chinese New Year, hence the red balloons. But if I show you around my flat, there's a lot of those Chinese sayings, you know, good luck, good health, mainly to do with wealth, essentially, of course, with this year.
Prosperity,
Uh,
good health and prosperity come together, mate.
yeah,
Come
that's the
together.
two
That's it.
keywords. Yeah.
There we
No, I'm
go.
here for
There we
another
go.
week. Yeah, I'm here for another week. So final week in-house. So very lovely to be back. It's been a while.
It has been. Folks, follow Christine if you don't know her already. She's going to help me co-pilot this thing through. And so just let me do some sound checks while we're still at it. Folks, if you're watching this on Crowdcast, let me know whether you can hear and see Christine and myself on screen. We should be broadcasting this also live on air on LinkedIn. I think there's a number of LinkedIn's firing off here. I'm broadcasting it. I think Bill Bowman is broadcasting this.
Oh,
Rod
nice.
Walker, of course, is doing so as well. So if you're watching this in any of those LinkedIn's, do let me know in comments whether the audio and visual is okay. Okay, everyone's good to go. Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Daniel. All very good. Folks, we're going to get on with it. But before we do, we always have to thank our sponsors for supporting Brainfood Live, because without our sponsors, we can't do these conversations, folks. I think we kind of under respect the commitment that the wonderful recruitment tech community has in supporting Brainfood Live conversations. And today's sponsor is one of our faves. It's actually one of everyone's faves because they're one of the most popular ATSs on the market today. It is, of course, Greenhouse. And I don't need to tell you too much more about Greenhouse. I can tell you I probably first started using Greenhouse over 13 years ago, was it? Very,
Hmm.
very early in my sort of in-house career. Someone said, "Hey, you should check this tool out." And I checked it out, and it was pretty good. Anyway, let me not say any more about it. We actually have the founder of Greenhouse, one of the founders of Greenhouse at least, here on the show, and he's going to help us talk through it. So, Dan, I wonder whether I can invite you onto the show. It doesn't look like I can, you know. Strangely enough, I don't have an invite option for you, which is a bit. Here we go. Dan Chait, of course, CEO of the company, just invited you on. Dan, go ahead and join us. There he is, Dan Chait.
Getting a bunch
How are
of
you?
pop-ups and things, and all right,
Just
I got a bunch of
delete
crazy little
Yeah, we could hear
notices.
you good. No.
We
delete
good?
everything but us. Nothing is important right now apart from Brainfood Live, Dan. You know this.
No, it was like, did you enable your microphone, or do you accept this invite? I'm like, yeah, I'm honored. Of course I accept this invite. So I'm not going to scrutinize it, but yeah, I want to talk to Hung.
Indeed, so it's great to see you, Dan, and I think probably everyone in the audience knows you already. But why don't you introduce yourself anyway? Who are you, and what it is you do?
I hope so. I'm Daniel Chait. I'm the founder, not sort of founder, as you said, actual founder and CEO at Greenhouse. Really exciting time at Greenhouse. As everyone in this audience surely knows, there's like so much happening in the world of hiring. And so I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, Dan. And Greenhouse, you've been doing like lots of crazy innovation of late. Tracking sort of how product innovation has been going with all of the leading vendors out there, and Greenhouse like coming out with stuff every week it seems. So loads of new things. AI and hiring report has come out. You've got loads of new initiatives. I wonder whether you could just tell us a little bit about that for the folks who
go to our website
be
and check out go to our website and check out the AI and hiring report. It's fascinating. I don't want to read it off to everyone here. You can definitely go check that out. But if you're in hiring right now, you know that AI is changing everything. If you want to hear some of those details, that report's chock full of them. But one of the things that we're helping our customers grapple with is just the overflow of junk in their inbox as a result of all these changes, right? The hiring market has gotten a lot softer, so there's just a lot more talent out there looking for jobs. Multiply that by remote work, where everybody's applying to jobs all over the world, not just in their neighborhood, and then multiply that again by the power of AI, people using AI to multiply the number of jobs they can apply to make their applications look more like the job description, in other words, more like each other. And then in the mix of all that slop come the bad guys, with their scams, well-known stories that we've heard of, everything from North Korean infiltration to people generating multiple AI copies of their resume. It's a lot to sort through. And so we announced a product last year called Real Talent, 3 layers of trust built into your pipeline to help deal with these issues. We've just come out of beta at the beginning of this month. It was a fascinating process to go through. I mean, you talk about innovation, like this is just whole new category stuff. Like if you think about what an ATS, you mentioned Hung using Greenhouse 13 years ago, like I never thought when I started this company I'd be fighting North Koreans, let's put it that way. But here we are. So what came out of the beta, really interesting to show. First thing, helping prioritize your inbox using AI really works. Our customers are spending about 55% less time reviewing applications per role, and yet advancing people at a higher rate when they're well calibrated. So stronger early stage signal, less time lost on low quality applications. Then you get to the fraud part. So during the beta, our customers collectively ran over 700,000 fraud checks on their applicants. These are looking at signals across multiple risk categories, not just a single thing. And it's an arms race, so it's constantly changing. You're looking at IP addresses, you're looking at device fingerprints, you're looking at application patterns, email addresses, and all these other signals. And happily, obviously, you're only finding a small subset of applicants that are flagged for fraud, which is what you would hope. But those are being flagged, and when they are flagged, the customer then has an opportunity to do a manual follow-up, and in most cases, they're able to clear up the issues. And in a couple of cases, you catch the bad guy red-handed. Really interesting to see what's happening there. And then lastly, the third layer of Real Talent is identity verification. Who is this person that I'm dealing with? Is it the same person I'm interviewing that applied? Is it the same person that I'm giving the offer to that I interviewed? Our customers ran over 2,200 ID verifications during the beta. The vast majority of those were successfully completed. There was a very, very small a subset of them that resulted in a true failure of ID matching. I would say the majority of the things that were flagged turned out to be innocent, name mismatches or, phone number formatting things, easily cleared up with the candidate, gives everyone a lot more confidence before, during, and after the interviews, lets legitimate candidates move through smoothly. These are the kinds of issues that customers are dealing with today. And by the way, job seekers as well. And if you think about recruiting, where it's come from, it used to be recruiters reaching out to candidates and trying to get them to apply or listen to you. Now it's all about managing that inflow and finding who the real people are from the fake, who the high quality applications are from the low intent ones. It's just a brave new world out there, and it's only beginning.
Yeah, it's crazy how that's suddenly escalated as one of the top priorities that TA folks have to think about. Rewind back like 2.5 years, folks. When was cybersecurity ever part of your remit? It's like literally not in your mind space. Now it's like number one in your thing, because you can't be the guy or the girl letting in fraud into your business. You have a responsibility to protect your hiring managers and protect your organization.
Yeah. And like I said, it's an arms race. We're just at the beginning of this. So the threats are going to change. The bad guys are going to try new things. The things that we're doing today, the barriers we put up that work now, are going to stop working later, and we have to do new things. It's not a static situation. And so we're having to invest literally millions of dollars in R&D to keep up with the changes in the threat behavior and the new reality that our customers are facing, regulatory, legal, and otherwise. And by the way, making sure that we do it while also being fair to the job seekers, while also complying with a patchwork of global, national, international, local, and state laws. It's a lot.
It's an interesting challenge, actually. So I work in quantum, of course, and in our fields, quantum, AI, machine learning, these are exactly the kind of industries where this would, we get a lot of candidates. And similarly, I think what I can see is this would not only support the validation in the upper funnel, but would this also remove the verification checks at the end of the recruitment process, because that's actually what takes a lot of time as well for some of these industries, right? It's doing the background checks and what filters out at that stage. But at the same time, this is something we haven't necessarily considered. So it's great that you're adding this to your product roadmap, because a lot of the recruiters are actually doing this manually at the moment, sense checking. LinkedIn profiles could be faked as well. So there's a lot more elements in there that you're covering. So that's exciting.
You got it.
There's more as well, Dan, because we opened this conversation talking about Claude, OpenClaw. I mean, what the heck is that going to do? Especially as you might get now legitimate applications, but someone who's completely automated it. Like, it's not fraud, but it's like, is it cheating? It's also not cheating. It's like just ridiculous optimization that I just think to know.
Yeah, I was talking about this yesterday. I think the technology is evolving so quickly that the societal understanding and like expectation of what the rules are around it isn't able to keep up. This always happens with technology. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when people said, no one's ever going to apply to a job on the internet. It's so important. I've got this beautiful resume that I printed out on ivory paper. Why would I possibly submit that to some janky website? But now, of course, it all happens. Everybody expects it. Well, with AI, that's just happening on at hyperspeed. And so the expectations around, I've had people ask, like, are you trying to detect people that are using AI to polish up their resumes? And I'm like, no, because by the time we figure out how to do that, everyone's already done it. It's not going to be a problem. You're not going to care about like the people who are worried anyone's using AI to do writing. Like, no, everyone's using AI to do all their writing. So now we're already on to the next, and the next is like, well, what if my AI copilot shows up to an interview with me? I think right now most people would say that's cheating. I don't know how long that's going to be considered cheating, or that's just going to be considered life. I mean,
no, it's so hard.
Our kids use calculators in class to do their math work. And when I was a kid, if you brought a calculator into your school to do your math work, you were in trouble. So yeah, we're gonna have
a show next year, Dan, where we're gonna do how do you assess a candidate and his or her AI agents, because I think that's going to be part of your acquisition thing, isn't it? It's not just the human being that you're acquiring anymore. It may well be the automation this person is bringing into your business. Potentially, maybe you don't want to bring it in, but perhaps it's bringing it closer to your business that can support work you're doing. All right. Anyway, Dan Che, great to have you on the show. Great to hear what you're saying as well. Greenhouse, I think one of the businesses that is really kind of like looking at the future just one step ahead and building the tools that we need. So great to have you doing this. Do check it out, folks, greenhouse.com. You know the business already. And do follow Dan as well on LinkedIn. He actually comes out with some really interesting posts. I say actually a lot, Dan. I don't mean it offensively.
I know. Actually, that guy writes some interesting stuff every once in a while. Who would have guessed?
Brilliant. Okay, let's get on with the show. Dan, stay with us. We're going to drop you off screen for now, but we're going to bring on Bill Borman and to tell us a little bit about the conversations that we've been talking about, particularly the transition of, or at least the survey data. Let's do that. Let's bring Jamie Leonard on, and let's bring Christine. We'll have to skip the review. We don't have time for it.
All good.
But let's you didn't read it anyway, did you? It's all right. Don't.
I actually did. And I was going to say extremely relevant to what Dan
you
was
had
saying
good
earlier.
chat. We'll have to save the good chat for another time. Are you coming to my meetup, by the way?
I'm swinging by because Kim's doing her supper club after.
Sorry, Kim. I'm kind of interrupted. Bill, is that Bill?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a random Bill.
JB,
let's just add a random Bill. Oh, okay, Jamie Leonard. Good to see you, sir. Jay.
Hey folks, can you hear me at all? My phone's just done something weird.
Yep, all good here.
Audio's fine.
Perfect.
Can you quickly introduce yourself, Jamie? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yep, I'm Jamie Leonard, CEO, co-founder of the recruitment events company. We do Wreckfest, we do RO100.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, mate. And of course, the leading TA event. I think if you want a festival, this is the one you want to go to. Check it out, Jamie Leonard on LinkedIn. We have Bill Borman as well, the legend that is in His kitchen.
Hi, Bill.
How you doing, Bill?
Hi, Christy.
Good to see you, mate. Bill, why don't you quickly introduce yourself, man? Who are you? What it is you do?
So I'm Bill Borman. I'm currently analyst writer for the AIM group, looking at job boards and a whole bunch of other stuff in the industry. Plus, I'm on the board of Vonk and PlayStap and Staff Circle, and do some work with and doing some really interesting work with RO100 with Jamie at the moment. So
yeah, brilliant stuff. And this is part of
and just being Bill Borman, which is kind of full time.
This is all you need, mate. That's how you were marketed in this show. Is like Bill Borman, parentheses, as himself. Anyway, both of these folks on LinkedIn, check them out. Jamie, go to you real quick on this because you're the one that started this thread really by doing this survey. Can you give us some context on what this is and why you went to LinkedIn to post about some of the early results?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of conversation. So we have multiple communities around the world, predominantly Middle East, US and UK of TA leaders. And, part of what we do is listen to the conversation and try and make sense of it. I've seen over the last few years, obviously, there's been a shrink within the talent acquisition teams themselves. We can see that across the board. Yet expectation hiring, it's not remaining at 21 levels, but it's still there. So there's kind of a whole piece around, well, we're still asking these teams to do a huge amount, but we're also, the teams are shrinking themselves. So started to look into and ask questions around, what do we think the future of a talent acquisition department looks like? And the work that Bill's done is more, where will that sit within the business itself? So part of what we've seen is, I think there's a definite move to smaller functions, leadership that's more entrenched within talent overall. I think you've got specialisms within there and talent or TA operations being one of them. So TA operations being the building and scaling of process more than anything else. And then also vendor management. You've got brand and advertising within there as well. You've got data and analytics in there as well. So it kind of forms up this group of specialists with the actual day-to-day recruiting being done by outsourced third party, embedded, RPO, recruitment, staffing, whatever you want to call it. Because and I remember Lars Schmidt saying to me about a year or so ago, he speaks to a lot of CEOs and CPOs. And this.
Oh, I think we've lost Jamie's audio.
I think we lost him.
Hold on.
No, in and out, Jay, I think. Yeah, it's probably gone to your phone. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, you're back.
Sorry, there you go. Yes, the phone went mad. So yeah, speaking to Lars and understanding, your average CPO is saying, well, why do I want a full fat TA team of recruiters when I don't know if I'm going to be hiring, bear or bull? So what we want to have is this specialist operation that then has day rate recruiters underneath, and we don't know where they come from. So the recruiters become the elasticity side, I suppose. More if you're hiring, less if you're not.
But what stays true is the operation, brand, and data, and probably some other functions. Actually, to go back to your point previously around security, that becomes a very, very big deal. So do you have a cybersecurity TA person within that mix as well, which I think is really interesting. So that's kind of was the thought process. I put it into the RO100 UK and said, hey, what do you think? Overwhelmingly, everyone came back and said, yep, this is kind of where we will see we're going. I put it onto LinkedIn. LinkedIn poll said 89%, yeah, this is where the world's going. And that's kind of where we're into. Now, with Bill, the part we spoke to is, okay, so where does that live within the talent universe if that happens? And we did a bunch of research, and Bill's been making some sense of that all.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Thank you, Jamie. Two things I want to say here. Firstly, the term full fat TA. That's the first time I've heard of that. But it's kind of like, I get it. It's like, are we now semi-skin TA? Yeah, we've got to shrink it down, get fit. But yeah, full fat TA, why do we want this? And secondly, very interestingly, a lot of these specialist roles, which previously you might have assumed as being like peripheral roles to the central core of actually delivering the candidates, finding the candidates, etc. Total reversal. We're looking at those specialist roles being the central part that you would keep on payroll, but maybe the people who are activated and actually going out and doing candidate engagement and finding the candidates, that could be RPO that could be on the freelancer marketplace. It could be somebody else that's off payroll.
Yeah, and I think as well that there's going to be companies that always hire certain types of people. Royal Mail will always hire post people, right? That's always going to happen. That's never going to go away. There are a lot of companies where they hire in waves. It's turn on, turn off recruitment, and that's where I think you don't need those recruiters in house.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Very, very interesting. Bill, let's go to you on this. Tell us about what sort of research you did on the back of sort of Jamie's preliminary sort of call out on questions. Like, can you give us a bit of context on that before we sort of share some slides?
Yeah, so we had a response of 131 as a data set, and I think what's important with this data set is it's 131 RO100 members, which means, first of all, we know they're definitely TA. There's a little bit we have to factor in that members of the RO100 are likely to be from more progressive organisations than the run-of-the-mill. But generally, 131 gives us a good picture of what's actually going on. I sent you over a little bit of the data earlier, but you're talking about over 80% are saying there is a transition, there is a change of the job, right? So this is the breakdown of who responded. 131 senior talent and TA leaders. The employee size brand was under 500 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000, 100,000 plus. Now, the interesting thing when you get into the data is what it looks like in reality is actually different according to the size of the organization. So if you're in a small organization, sub 500, this is already happening. Your job's already changed because you haven't hired extra people to do other things. If you're at the top end of that scale, in kind of the 100,000 plus organizations, it's more strategic planning of how we can execute this. But the one certainty is that it's all changed. So if you want to jump on another slide for me, Hung, I know you've got the deck. So this is these are the people that this is effectively what we looked at. What we've seen overwhelmingly is that we have real change. Is that the change is happening? There's more responsibility. Hung, or Christine, if you want to jump the slides on for me a little bit, you've got the deck. The change has happened. In particular, one responsibility that goes across everybody is workforce planning. That's from memory around about 79%. I think it's important to take note of that because workforce planning means moving from a tactical doing, filling job responsibility into a strategic planning role. So it's moving on into this position of really having to deliver well beyond the delivery of people at the top of the funnel.
Quick question on this, Bill.
Yeah.
Is this like aspirational? Like, actually, Jamie, maybe you can pop in as well. Like,
well,
are people saying that yes, workforce planning
this
is
is
now
what
part of the remit?
Right. So first thing, this is what they have responsibility for in their remit.
Currently,
that's how the question is framed, right? So this isn't what do you. The great thing about this survey, I think, this data, is it isn't saying what do you think. This isn't an opinion poll. It's not a no disrespect to them, but it's not a LinkedIn poll where it's a very focused member group saying how is your job changing today, like what's different, and then what do you think it's going to be? How do you think that's going to change, right? So if we concentrate on today, the majority of the respondents have responsibility for workforce planning, number one. Number two, they have responsibility for internal mobility and career pathing within that. So they're the two things that really stand out. And then a responsibility for DE&I, which I'm suspecting is for a different reason, but they now have not just responsibility, but some accountability for the DE&I of the organisation. And a bit of retention stuff in there as well, in terms of how long people are staying in the organisation. So what we're seeing is that this is real. This is like today stuff. It's not future. Now, what we're doing next over the next 2 weeks, which is why we're not giving you too much data today, is having interviews with about 80 of the respondents to say, what did you mean by that, right? Because if I take the example, if you say we do workforce planning, that could mean I do the survey, I provide a report, and I go to the board and say this is workforce planning, or that could mean I deliver the workforce plan. Yeah. So we want to understand where that sits. Now, the bit that I attached to that at the beginning, which is becoming distinctly different, why you can't have a one size fits all. What the data is showing us is according to the size of organisation in terms of employee headcount, depends what that means, right? So what I mean by that is that if you take, for example, internal mobility, right, which is increasingly becoming a responsibility, does that mean you are you're looking at the internal pool, but you're operating the same way as you did when you looked at the external pool? So you're looking for people who can do the job today. You're putting them up for interview. They're going into the same workflow as if they're an external candidate. Does this mean you're creating an internal career site? Are these the actual things you're doing? Or are you doing the career, not only internal mobility jobs today, but career pathing? What's the route? Sure. So that people are starting to put their hand up and say, I want this job in 6 months, 12 months. Now, I have a view of what I think I'm going to find, but until I have those 60, 70 conversations, I can tell you the headline that says internal mobility says most people have responsibility for internal mobility. What I can't tell you yet is what that looks like. Now, what we are seeing, that what we can see really clearly from the data, is if you work in an organisation of 100,000 plus people, which is one group of the RO100, that looks quite different to if you work in an organisation of 500 people. And how far along you are on that curve in terms of how much responsibility and execution you're doing today, the likelihood is if you work for a sub 500, sub 1,000 company, you're doing all these things simultaneously at the same time. If you work for 100,000 plus, you're putting together the strategy of how are we going to deliver it? What specialist roles do I need in my TA function? Now, the other bit is around whether it is actually talent acquisition anymore. You know, how much of the job, and I want to get an actual answer to this question that I've been speculating on for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. How much of the job is acquisition, and how much of the job is talent? Right?
Well, this is it. I mean, one of the go ahead, Chrissy.
Yeah, I was going to ask Bill. So, based on the initial data you've seen, have you been able to segment? Because you mentioned, the under sub 500s and over 10,000s, are you able to see like whether TA is actually owning it at this point, or will you only find out after the
There's
conversation?
two answers to that. Well, three
Yeah.
answers to that. One is, can I see it in the data at the moment? I think so.
Yeah.
Right. Two, am I going to tell you? No, not today. I'm saving that one.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
reason I'm not doing that is until I've talked to the people about what they mean by the answer, I can't give you a definitive answer, right? It'd be very easy
Right.
to give you a headline at this point. And there's lots of opinion bloggers and dangerous podcasters that would do that. I'm not that person, right? So what I want to do is say, realistically, we know we have an area of investigation. We know we need to understand this. I think this is some of the most critical work that I've done personally, is understanding this, because it genuinely impacts the future of what our industry looks like and what my whole network looks like. Everyone I've been connected with generally works in recruitment. So I'm kind of wanting to share with them and with Jamie, who fortunately shares the same passion around this area as I do. We want to know what that looks like. So what I can tell you is the next 2 weeks is going to be spent understanding what do we mean. What I can tell you as headlines is the job has changed for the majority of the people who replied. Right? That's the first absolute answer. 75% of them now have responsibility and accountability for workforce planning. I don't know whether that means the workforce planning report or the delivery of the workforce plan, right? And I'm expecting that to look different in different sizes of the organisation. I can tell you that round about 70% of those people have responsibility and accountability for internal mobility. And there is some accountability for retention of people within that, delivery against.
Let me just
I can tell you that over 60% of people have responsibility and accountability for ED&I. Right. So, and what my theory is on that, I can't prove it yet, but my theory on that is because politically, publicly, whatever it is, we've stripped out ED&I roles, particularly in government. Those job titles no longer exist, primarily for political reasons. The organisations haven't moved away from ED&I. They've just put it somewhere else, and they put it under the hood. And I think where they put it is in what was the TA function, right? So we're seeing some accountability.
All right, Jamie, go on.
No, just going to say, and I don't want to give a massive amount away because we want to do the research on it. What I would say is this: if you look at the three areas, so sub 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, and then upwards. If you look at the sub 1,000, the reason they own more than talent acquisition is there's usually one person in the role. Like your talent person is your everything, right? So they literally handle everything. When you go above sort of 10,000, 20,000, then it becomes way more structured, and it's more about there's natural progression into a more talent focused role. It's the folks in the middle right now that are the ones going. There might not be a lot of hiring going on. What else can I own? Is that workforce planning? Is that internal mobility? And that's where we're seeing a lot of the not confusion but desire to learn more, I suppose, more than anything else. And that's kind of one of the headlines I'm sure will come out.
Hang on, guys. We have to move on. We have to move on. Thank you, you two. 2 weeks is what you said, Bill. So 2 weeks. We'll come back and have a look at this.
2 weeks is when we've done the research. I think there's a March date for RL100 Summit, and whoever's at that summit will get first look at the research, and then we'll show it to you. We'll come back on.
Looking forward to it.
We'll definitely have that. We'll definitely have that. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you, Jamie, for getting this stuff sorted out. It's actually really interesting information, tapping into the value of community. Folks, this is super interesting, isn't it? Thank you for your comments in the chat, by the way. Bob, I kind of get your vibe as well, but I think the segmentation does explain a little bit. And actually, Christine, your role is super relevant. I remember you and I having a conversation like way back when. About scope expansion. And it was like not an easy decision at that time for you, but you took it, and you're probably owning a lot of this now, right?
Yeah, well, it's saying it, hence why it'll be interesting to see the data, but I imagine anything sub 500, if you're owning the entire TA plus on the people side, for me, having worked in TA for 10 years, we all know how difficult it is to, to do actual recruitment and, the cost per hire. So at the same time, you want to ensure retention, you're able to retain them. So being able to see it holistically is absolutely critical, right? So I think I can see why in larger companies, if TA's goals are solely based on, number of hires and they're not strategic, they're not looking at it holistically, it kind of puts them on a bit of a back foot, right? Because especially nowadays, especially the next generation, we don't look at things as career ladders anymore, as career paths, right? So in larger organizations, we're seeing people drive their own career forward. So how do we then actually help facilitate that rather than saying, right, here's a typical process internally? Like you have to also do the same attraction model internally, right? There might be someone customer service that's coding in their own time. And how do you then attract them to then maybe move on to work in an engineering role? So I think you will start to see like employer brand, but also like in internal roles as well.
Do you know what? I don't think that can happen without actually eliminating the hiring manager. But that's one of my controversies I want to talk about here. Okay, great stuff. Listen, folks, as we're getting our other guests on to the show, we're going to bring on some practitioners that basically can discuss these findings. Like, what are we actually finding out there? So let's bring on Trina. I just sent you an invite. We're going to bring on Jen as well. Where can I find Jen? I tell you what, this is not easy to find. We've got Tush here as well. Hey, Trina, how are you doing? Great to see you.
I'm good, thank you. It's very cold in Denmark, but I guess it's
give us the minus figure. How cold is it?
Degrees Celsius, so I think it's been around -4 today, which is warmer than the other days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's too much. That's painfully cold. I mean, I was at -4 in Vienna about a month ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm hurting. Not nice. So Trina, wonderful to see you. Why don't you introduce yourself while everyone's coming on? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, my name is Trina. I'm from Denmark. As I said before, I'm the head of global TA for Novo Nordisk. We're a biosolutions company. We were actually founded from a merger. That's why Hung knows me back in 2024 from two index companies from the exchange. And we do microorganisms, probiotics, enzymes, and we kind of have a full value chain from production. That's always interesting, to R&D and all the other support functions. So yeah, and I've had to set up TA from having 7 people to having 43.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's been a great journey, still an ongoing journey. So we'll probably have to have a deeper dive in that at a later point, Trina. LinkedIn is shared in the chat there, so make sure you connect. We have Jennifer Candy here, of course. Jennifer, great to see you again. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So Jennifer Candy, I'm a global head of TA for companies such as Cargill, Mondelez International, SAB Miller, most recently consulting for a transformation at IMI. In terms of team sizes, anywhere from 60 to 463. But hopefully in the future that goes down some with, I guess, people on our target operating model that are not people. So we're going to have a hopefully a little bit of a mix here, but interesting conversation. So happy to be here.
Yeah, great to see you, Jen. I've just shared the link there as well. Make sure you connect. We have Danny Keynes. Danny, wonderful to see you again. Who are you? What it is you do?
Thanks, Hung. Dan Keynes. I'm the head of permanent talent acquisition at Babcock International. I've actually just about to hit my 2nd anniversary at Babcock. So first corporate role in about 10 years. I was previously in startups and scale-ups, the sort of places where entrepreneurs would swear at you across the table. So Babcock's been a very different experience, but a very positive one. Lots of change going on, all very good stuff. And this is very relevant right now.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And we have Tush here, Wijaratni. Tush, great to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Hi all, I'm Tush Wijaratna. I'm the global director for a company called WPP, a big marketing advertising agency or leader. Been in recruitment for 20 plus years. I go more as a transformation TA specialist. So I go in, look at what we need going forward, build backwards. Nice to be here. Amazing amount of people are watching it as well as this group. So thanks.
Yeah, Fantastic to have you all. Again, all the LinkedIns are shared. Heidi unfortunately can't join us. She had to drop out at last minute. So it's us going forward to the rest of the show. Folks, you just heard Bill and Jamie talk about this research. And you know what? I was kind of surprised by it. And we had some commentary in the chat saying, you know what? I can't really believe this. 75% of TA leaders are saying they now own workforce planning. Is that a little bit like too high? I mean, is that even true? Like if we asked, let's say 110 HR people and said who owns sort of workforce planning, would we also have them say 75%? What are our thoughts on this? Is it sample bias in some way? Is it genuinely where we're at? Is it where we're going to be? Any thoughts on that? Danny, go.
Yeah, I think 75% is probably quite high right now. I think it's probably aspirational. You know, if I speak for myself, I work with some very talented strategic workforce planning people. I work very closely with them. But if I said to them tomorrow, you're part of TA, I think they'd probably take dispute with that because the role's wider than TA alone. And I would argue that even if you did stick it in TA, are we actually potentially limiting its ability to do what it needs to do? Not saying it's wrong, but right now, I would say not. Strategic workforce planning, if I was to tie it up neatly, is part of the same area of the people function that we're in, but it's not part of TA. And I suspect in a lot of cases, unless you're a small function, that's probably the case.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Trina?
Yeah, well, I'm nodding because again, we're quite new. I still say that we're still building the high rise from the bottom, all the basics in place, and workforce planning is a little high up there. We only got into the same ATS system April last year, so I think everybody who's gone through a merger know what that looks like. I think we're discussing position management, and we have an analytics team who sits with all of that and figuring out with finance. It's a cross collaboration. How can we help line of business? But it is something that we'd like to be better at, but we haven't cracked the code quite on where is it, but it is an interface between us and the other HR functions and finance and business.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, basically, SWP basically is its own function. The bigger you go as an organization, right? I don't know when the breaking point is. I guess something at the 5,000 plus mark. Maybe you get a specialist. Maybe below that, it's folded in as a task that some other person does. I don't know. I mean, Christine, maybe you got an idea, or maybe Jen, you got an idea. Like, when does SWP become its own function? Jen, you're on mute. Let me just unmute you. Oh, I think you're going to stay on mute. You might have to refresh to come back to us. Unmute this user. I'm going to unmute you. Give me a sec. Oh, no, I can't do it. Something weird has happened, Jen. I don't quite understand. Oh, that's also weird, but never mind.
Yeah, it happened to me earlier.
Any thoughts on this? Like, what is the break point at which point strategic workforce planning becomes its own function? And maybe we're talking about two different groups of organization here, in the sense that below that number, perhaps TA, there's no one specialist doing it, so perhaps it could be a function that TA would absorb. But right now, if there's someone in place, then there's going to be a turf war, really, isn't there? Any thoughts?
It's if I look at Babcock, right, we're a 27,000 person business in the FTSE 100. It makes absolute sense to have a strategic workforce planning team separate, because it's a monster of an organisation with a lot of moving parts. So I think for us, it's easy for me to say what I've just said, and it's probably quite controversial because a lot of TA people think SWP should be part of their role. But I think if you're in a smaller business, and I think the startups and scale-ups I've been in, where they've been 2, 3, 5,000, workforce planning has absolutely been part of my remit. But once you bust past that, it gets too big.
Yep, fair play. I think there's definite size and scale there. So, Bill, definitely the segmentation that you did earlier, I think is going to be very, very interesting for us to observe. And also Jamie's point that actually we already know this is not surprising. We're just like surfacing up for the first time, but it's the middle part that may have, kind of some enterprisey style sort of structures emerging, and then, still some startup type, getting your hands dirty type of stuff going on. That's place where there's maximum flux and dynamism. Yeah. Okay, very good. Let's go through sort of the concept of that Jamie mentioned right at the beginning, where all of these so-called peripheral specialisms in TA, talent intelligence, employer branding, maybe recruitment ops, talent ops. Previously, they were like, okay, you have that because you've got a great team, you want to get better. What if are they now becoming core to what TA is, and it becomes talent operations? And in fact, I think the biggest controversial moment is the actual recruitment going to be a little bit more on demand? And if that's the case, isn't that a complete a role reversal from what it was been before? Thoughts on this, Tush?
I think it's the evolution of where we are right now. So if you think about as a company, taking up and flexing up level, and because of that, it's hard for TA to measure what is needed from a TA capacity. But we do know that there are fundamentals in terms of the engine that we need to run. The funnel of candidates can be increased and decreased depending on the delivery of tech, of TA. However, you do need operations, you do need an element of marketing, you need your branding, you need your systems. That's always constant. Yes, there will be a flexing up of how much you can push the systems, but it's needed. The delivery could be hiring more recruiters, embedded recruiters, going third party, could be going RPO. So the funnel, there's options around it, but the core has to remain constant. So I think that's where the difference has shifted to. And some companies have been doing it for a long time. Some companies have always been focused on we need a good operations function. We can always find a funnel. And that now is becoming more and more important as to what is that core that we need to do, what is the engine. If you can get the engine running, which we call operations, theory, you're in a good place. So hence why there's more importance on that. I think it's because of the flex up, flex down, and the agility needed by the business. TA also needs to have the agility, and that's what we're seeing in the market right now.
Yeah, really good. Oh, we've got Jen back as well. By the way, the camera angle has changed. I know Jen's like battling away with the tech here because we can see the different camera angles firing off. We'll probably on the security.
Don't worry,
camera.
I had the same thing as well. So technology is failing us today.
So if I'm looking here, I'm looking at you, but whatever, you got me.
All good. Jen, I don't know whether let me leave you to get reacquainted with the chat. Jen, you might not have caught some of that because you come in and out. But in terms of the idea that sort of generalist recruiters end up becoming a little bit more on demand, I've kind of witnessed that the jobs that I've seen being published are all being like FTCs, fixed term contracts. And that kind of resonates with me to say, you know what, it seems that is the case because we've gone through these bull and bear markets, like a ridiculous oscillation for the last couple of years. We can't predict the headcount demand. Therefore, actually, we're not going to put the headcount on fixed payroll. We need to have much more, put it onto flexible cost, and that's fixed term contract as the biggest commitment we're going to make, if not, tapping in a freelancer marketplace or just tapping into, a lot of floating recruiters out there. Is that sort of where we're going to see it going forward? Like, what is the complement of full-time versus a fixed-term contract in a TA group? Let's say you have 10 TA people. How many of those are fixed term?
10. I wish I had 10. That would just be easier. But I'm going to answer. I'll give my answer to that. I don't think it's I think the pendulum's shifting, going back and forth, right? So we don't know yet is the answer. And so I think with what we're seeing right now, we have to be dynamic with everything we're doing around target operating models. And we need to take a look at, where we are in the TA roadmap with our AI maturity model, and then looking at our target operating models to how do we support that 3 to 5 year roadmap, knowing that there's a whole bunch that we don't know yet and that's not tested. And to do so, yes, I think in the interim, we absolutely will probably need more FTE or interim because it's not predictable. Will we ever be able to predict? Probably not perfectly. But when we start putting in things like talent intelligence and working towards predictive analytics and strategic workforce planning, really being strategic workforce planning, not just workforce planning. I've not seen real strategic workforce planning perfectly work, by the way, except for within defined areas like sales, which is a bit more predictable. Then I think we can take a look at what we actually need. But I think it's just dynamics, simply that. It's ever changing, the roles we need ever change. And I'd say, like, look, IMI had just asked me to do something around, can you put together a 3-year roadmap for TA and AI? And yes, I mean, I can, and the readiness and taking a look at your barriers to entry on different areas within your streams of AI where it's capable. Where do you start? Where is a low barrier to entry? Where can you get to, and what do you do first? So you're looking at in phases, what's your foundational elements? What roles do you need? But then looking at your target operating model with your people in those roles, how are they going to need to shift along the way? So your organization is no longer stagnant, right? It's ever changing. So the roles, I know there's a ton of people out of work that are worried, right? And I think it's more around the roles, how they shift and change. Yes, there probably will be less, but how do they shift and change? And which people are you going to bring forward into new roles within the organization? And how do you bring them along with you to train within those? I mean, some of the ones I'm seeing that I put in place a couple years, 2, 3, 4 years back, that I'm starting to see in some of the AI chat is, TA optimization leads, or TA or talent intelligence and data analytics, data science leads, right? Because you're trying to get the data to make sure that you can have that strategic capability moving forward and influence the business. So I think those are just a couple of examples of how do we bring this all together, but it's dynamic. It is not, it's something that, as Bill said, elastic, or can't remember who said that, but maybe it was Jamie, but good word for that.
Yeah,
it's interesting because I think what you're,
go ahead, Christine.
I was going to say is less what you were saying. What I'm hearing is actually more like talent. It's like all strategic talent intelligence here, right? You're looking at how to shape, like, also not just a roadmap, but like even AI policy, AI usage from candidates, the AI policy for candidates usage, and also internal usage as well. And you talk about like the intelligence and analytics. Some talent teams also work closely with like business intelligence, for example. So they will capture data at all aspects of the employee journey, right? From like onboarding to probation period, their salary increases, their entire journey. And from that, they can actually then feed that back into talent acquisition as well and say, what departments are we seeing that are going through the biggest growth versus ones that aren't? And from there, you can then be more strategic with recruitment. So I wonder if it's the data that Bill and Jamie were saying earlier was less around TA owning it, but actually like feeding into strategic workforce planning. Whereas the future of the roles we're seeing is actually the TA hat is not just like generalist recruiting. It's actually looking at systems, it's looking at the entire stack and supporting future-proofing the business.
Yeah, and on that note, it's actually quite legitimate to question the relabeling that might be required. I mean, I know people kind of dismiss semantics, but the words mean something. I mean, let's not forget talent acquisition itself was an invented term. Prior to that, you were a recruitment manager or something. Before that, you were personnel, weren't we? So all of those times, the kind of the reinvention of the terminology was to describe a very specific moment. And I do think talent acquisition kind of emerged in that 20-year period when we were like, okay, everyone was growing into this supercharged, hyperscaling. We need to be a globalized business. WeWork or Amazon is basically what we all want to be. You can't do that without 100,000 people. Let's go charge and grow that organization. That is required external talent in. Yet now you're talking about one person companies. You're talking about these big companies now like progressively chopping down, and we could probably confidently guess that the likes of Amazon, Meta, Google, the tech companies are never going to have more on payroll than they already have. They've already hit peak payroll. They're just going to keep going down, going forward. And if that's the case, then TA's got a choice. Either we stay trying to, our role shrinks with the demand of the organization, hiring externally will shrink, and that's okay for some. Or we jettison the label and look at expansion of scope, which is where else can we be useful? And in fact, what is the true value of talent acquisition as a function? which in my opinion is a business enablement function. You know, the company doesn't necessarily want to hire people. It just wants to achieve a target, of which hiring people at one point was the best way to achieve that outcome. But if it's no longer the best way, then can we as a function still be the delivery or the facilitation of that outcome? And that may mean jettisoning of the TA. By the way, I just want to mention, I love Jen's sort of a general experience here. She's come by as a kind of a drive-by shooter, hasn't she? She's come in, say a few things, chop out. Anyway, let's look at these future things then. Talent acquisition. I mean, do we need a name change? I mean, what are our thoughts on this? Open question for everyone here.
I'm less worried about that. I've got to be honest. I've always questioned the title talent acquisition because, let's be honest, for a long time, people were just recruitment functions with a really nice title. It was like being a project manager that said they were a scrum master, right? And maybe that sounds harsh, but I think it's there. I think everything you've just said there, Hung, is very valid. I think TA, whether it's a title change or not, I don't know, but there's a lot of papers out there, and Tash, Jen and I have been talking about this. We now need to become strategic partners. When I look at Babcock, actually, you know, we're operating with some strong individuals that are going into the business and advising the business, starting to be more forward thinking, and actually they're not necessarily doing the hands-on recruitment. We've got an RPO engine who do this very successfully for us. So the dynamic changes. So is talent acquisition right or not? I don't actually know the answer to that. You know, if it's not talent acquisition, what is it? You know, I'm in defense, so whether you like it or not, we're about to hit growth mode for obvious reason with what's going on out there. But I'm not about to get given a whole load of more people. So we've got to change the dynamic. You know, a lot of what I do as an individual is now around, sounds very glorified, but it's transformation. It's what's next. How do I get the basics fixed? Because I think a lot of TA functions, without going off the point, are talking about AI, skills-based hiring and all this great stuff, and it's all relevant. But a lot of the foundations just aren't there. So yeah, title-wise, I don't know. Maybe we need to hold a competition so you can come up with the most creative title. I don't know.
I think I'm with Daniel. Like, the titling is one thing. I think it's more where we sit. So I think talent acquisition, recruitment has always been our eye, but not necessarily from the business eyes. And talent, whatever you want to call it, coming into the business, keeping that talent is an entire business problem. It's not, it's the hiring manager, it's leaders, it's HR, learning and development. We're all part of talent in a way. So it's more a case of where do we fit into that ecosystem? What role do we play? Is it a specialist role, or is it a multiple M-shaped profile consultant role using the skills we have? And you then plug in the super agents coming into the equation and see where do they play, because they are also going to be part of our org structure. The super agents will be playing a role, whether we want it or not, in the future. And which role do they play for each of these areas? Because there could be smaller businesses which say, you know what, startups, do we need TA? Do we need HR? We've got an agent who can do all this for us. And we'll consult to have a look at it. And there might be others who say, actually, we do need a specialist to make sure the agents are doing the proper job. They're built the proper way. So there might be less specialisms, or less specialists, but people who work with super agents, build it, analyze, program, but also double check what's coming out of those agents, as well as providing a service to the business, the more human-centric aspect of our job. So I think that's where it will evolve, and that's where we will have to find our way. Titling will differ probably from company to company, whether we are a specialist or whether we are an agent specialist. It depends on the maturity of the company and where we land eventually.
But I think in the interim, I mean, look, we've been batting around these conversations for donkey's years, right? Where does TA sit? What do we call it? What do we do about this? What's the difference? Honestly, at the end of the day, how does work get done? And how do you partner? How and who do you partner with to do it? Will change, right? And will morph along the way. But how do you develop those more synergistic relationships between talent development, strategic workforce planning. It may sit in other areas if you're in a 160,000 person organization, right? It may not fit all in one. In a smaller SME, you might have it all in one. To me, it's rather irrelevant to where it sits, but to how you partner and work together and what your governance structures are to how work gets done to maintain that. So, I mean, we will see different titles, we will see different structures, but I don't think there's ever going to be here's your one size fits all for TA, right? It's got to work for that organization. So we'll see a lot of different iterations and get ideas from others.
Yeah, good stuff. By the way, just for everyone's notice, we're going to be talking about exactly this topic at the state of TA and HR in 2026. We're going to get some research from Aspen Tech Data Labs. They're going to just do a 5-year kind of review as to what job titles have been published over time. And Bill, we will be seeing sort of whether there has been any changes, like what are the numbers of people calling themselves TA over time? Has that gone up or down? What are the new job titles that are emerging in the industry? And that's going to help. I'm going to share the link to that event. That is, when is it? It's March the 11th. So it's actually a Wednesday show midweek, but go ahead and say, oh, don't sign to that. That's actually my possibly sharing dodgy links in chat there. No, you can follow that. That is my Crowdcast channel. That's totally safe for work. Go and follow that. And then from there, you can actually register onto the show. Okay, we're coming to the end of this. And obviously we need a part 2. Part 2 seems to me about how do we do the internal dialogue and negotiations. Because if there is an expansion of scope from talent acquisition, we're going to end up rubbing up alongside and against some other functions that might see, oh, this is my remit, what you're doing. And Danny, you actually even mentioned that explicitly to say, you know what, in some companies you work for, you know, if you started saying from TA's point of view, I'm doing some workforce planning, they may correctly say, what the heck are you doing, mate? So what is our policy there? How do we actually think about this? And let's also understand from the other functions within the people organization, they may also be going through a similar journey of expansion of scope. So they may be coming into our world as well. So what's our policy? Do we have a policy? Is it just to battle it out? Like what's our thoughts on this, Trina?
But I think you're back again to it. There is not a one size fits all, right? So I think we're all different sizes. We're 11,500 people sitting across the world. There's also some legal elements to some of that, and we're already battling it out, right? We have people tech. Why do we have tech people that do IT when we're an IT department? So I think it's back to the basics. As we evolve, all of us are going to have some kind of IT tech, or I'm going to be an obsolete dinosaur at the age of 50, which is in 5 months, right? So I'm going to have to evolve. So is my team, and it's trying to figure out, I can't do everything that's bright and shiny. I think they said it really well at Breakfast. Can't build a high riser from the top. So each one of us have to find out where's the maturity in our organization, in the needs, because I would love to have everything you guys have, but I don't think that's where the journey is right now for my company, where we are. And I said it last time, I think, and I might get somebody to kick me, but Denmark is a little behind on the journey. We have full-time FTEs. I'm a full-fat TA organization, and that is probably changing. We're always a little behind the rest of you. So that's my kind of non-answer.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be behind, Trina. Maybe we need to catch up with you guys, because one of the things with regards to shifting from fixed sort of full-time work to fixed-term contracts is obviously an injection of precarity into the industry, and that may not be welcome. I mean, some people, yes, flexibility may be good in certain circumstances. But other people, you know what? They need a solid kind of income, and they need a solid career path. And maybe they do their best work by having a 2 to 3 year plan within an organization, rather than have to constantly market themselves every 3 to 6 months and so on. So maybe we need to look a little bit more at the Danes and say, perhaps we've got to resist this sense of, urgency for flexibility, because there's a resiliency by having resources basically in-house. Okay, we're going around. Yes, I actually forgot even the question, but I think we're talking about relationships with other functions within the people function. Let's do a quick round robin on this. What is the policy? Is it like literally Lord of the Flies type scenario? We just got to battle it out. Let's be honest, maybe it's that way. Or is there, ways in which we negotiate? If so, how so? Danny Keynes.
I've been quite lucky in Babcock. My experience has been very positive here. I was expecting a big corporate to be very, very siloed. There's probably elements of this, but actually, as I'm opening doors, people are welcoming me in. And I think I mentioned to you earlier on, we're building a lot of our foundations in at the moment and deciding where we want to be. And there's a lot of people in that same place. So if I look at workforce planning, my colleague Roger there, we speak on a regular basis. Talent development, we're now building end-to-end, journeys. We're starting to think about where we want to go next. So I don't see it as a bun fight. I've been quite lucky. It sounds like I'm in a commune, but it's been very good. Everyone broadly wants to move the right direction. Are we still duplicating and are we still inefficient? Yeah, I'm going to say we are. We're a big business. It's going to happen. But broadly speaking, it's a door open policy. So I think as long as you're working closely with these people and you're not trying to be knowledge is power and arms is round it, then you're in a good place. And that's sort of the way I see it at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, Danny. Tush, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, how do we play it from a TA perspective, expanding scope, potentially, treading on toes, I guess?
I think I've been lucky in the last couple of years, companies I've worked in, where there's a mutual respect for what TA brings to the table. Like we are the first to identify the talent, talk to talent, bring them in. There's a relationship already there. If things go wrong, we probably might know more from the external market, also from the people we're speaking to. So I think I've been quite lucky that we feed off each other. There's been a lot of collaboration and mutually identifying, yes, I know it's your patch, but this is what I'm thinking, that we have a conversation around it. So then I haven't had the situation where I'm sorry, this is my remit, don't talk to me about it. Been very collaborative and appreciative of what everybody brings to the table. And the same on my side. If HR of L&D, anyone says you to maybe you should look at XYZ, I'll do the same on my side of things. So yeah, I'll be unique, but we're pretty lucky with that.
Are we all lucky, Jen? Like how...
I don't think we're all lucky, but I think it is what you make it, right? So it depends on the leader. The orgs I've come into, it's been all across the shop, really. I'd say the first battle is often around global EVP, right? With a lot of infighting on who owns this and who owns this. And I think it's less about that. And I maintain this. It's really, and I put it in the chat, like if you can develop a good governance in RASCI, I put the S in there because there's always supporting people, but develop a good RASCI around who does what and how and when and by what modalities do we partner, right? When do we come together around that? Because you do need the internal folks in different areas to partner with to get everything done. So I'm not sure it's ownership by one in particular, but it's how do we come together, but how do we develop the operating models and the governance structures that support that. And it is a bit more complex in large orgs, but it is feasible equally. So I would maintain it's not luck, but actual process and governance and structure, which is quite boring, but actually once he put that forward, people like a plan and people like, ooh, this works. Oh, this doesn't. And then let's revisit it and say, should this be, because it changes, right? It's still dynamic. You can put something in place, but the RASCI is always going to change. But just having that clarity so you're not tripping over toes as well.
Yeah, and a lot of it is process, but a lot of it is also relationship building, and that's something you can't neglect. So in advance of all of this, you've got to have great relationships with everyone else. Okay, folks, we have to let it go because we are well over time. Even the panelists are bailing out on us, so we all have to stop. Thank you so much for joining Brainfood Live on Air. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Obviously, more to talk about the future of the function and so on. We're excited to bring these shows to you. Follow the channel if you're enjoyed this show. We do it every week, sometimes bi-weekly. We'll cover the topics that are important to the community. If we're missing something, by the way, let me know what topics we should be covering, and we'll get them to you as well. Okay, let's say goodbye to our guests, Jen Candy, Danny Keynes, Trina Rolfs, and we have to say goodbye to Christine here as well. Thank you for joining as co-pilot. Let me know, by the way, where the new address is and where you're going to end up. Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
and we'll catch up. We'll catch up next week anyway. So swing by on Tuesday.
Yeah, see you Tuesday. Thank you, everyone. Happy Chinese New Year as well.
Gong hei fa choi.
Gong hei fa choi. San taking home. See ya. Take care.
Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.